Hey everybody, Arthur here, back with some more crazy obscure DSiWare games for you. We're getting close to the end. E'shops are closing in a bit less than 2 months, so do check out all the previous videos of this coverage if you haven't yet, for hundreds and hundreds of other games, and stay tuned for a few more videos to come still. Just some behind the scenes here. I finally finished my research on the DSiWare. I selected all the games I want to talk about and played every single one of them. I just want to say this was a crazy ordeal. Take a look at the spreadsheet I used for research and organizing. It looks like a madhouse with all these colors which only have meaning to me, so this was absolutely a crazy project with how obscure these DSiWare games are. In the end, I selected about 160 games, give or take a few, that I haven't decided whether I'm including or not. I already covered 50 of them in the previous video and 50 more on this one, so that's to say that I'll be making part 7C as well. Since I already played the games, it will take less time from B to C compared to A and B, so stay tuned for that. And that's enough introduction, let's get to the games. Welcome to the channel, this is From the Void. First game this time is total hidden gem Little Red Riding Hood Zombie Barbecue. If you are an avid DS collector, you'll know this one as one of the most expensive DS games in physical form, and I'm pretty sure that even among collectors, people are largely not aware that this game is available on the 3DS DSiWare for a small fraction of the price. And this is a pretty interesting and fun game. It's a top-down shooter, partially on rails. Your character moves forward automatically, but you can dodge incoming attacks moving left or right and ducking too. You have special weapons to choose from, like a flamethrower, shotgun, as well as a laser and grenades, and the boss fights are a major highlight in this game. They are all challenging and pretty cool, but this ties to something that can make or break your interest in the game. The bosses are all grossly zombified versions of beloved fairy tale characters. The first one, for instance, is Red Riding Hood's Granny. Later you have the Three Little Pigs, Pinocchio, and even Santa Claus will show up in disgusting zombie form. It can feel off-putting for sure, but if you don't mind or find it humorous even, the game is a lot of fun. Rather chunky story and other modes too, and also several difficulties. Quite a full package here. Very much worth the $7.99 price, which is 26 times less expensive than a DS physical complete in box version of this game, that currently goes for no less than 210 bucks as per price charting. So yeah, do pick this one digitally if you want to have this game legit to save $200. Following up with an intelligent systems game. So this is a Nintendo title and a formidable hidden gem, very hidden actually. I mean, this is a Nintendo game that doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. That's not common at all. But also not the only one on this list. We're talking about Link and Launch. Link and Launch is a pretty unique and creative puzzle game where you have to build a path between the fuel and the rocket, but it's way deeper than just that. Depending on which of the propulsors you direct the fuel to, the rocket will go left, right or straight, so you will reach different puzzles depending on your path, and you have to stay on your trajectory to reach the next planet, so you can't surpass the yellow limitations, so you gotta watch out. There are several other things too, like upgrades to your rocket. This is a pretty great game, one of the highlights on the DSiWare for sure, as you would expect from an intelligent systems game. This is totally worth the $4.99 asking price, and it's exclusive to the 3DS DSiWare right now. check out the title on this next one. Pro Jumper Chimaki's Hot Spring Tour Guilty Gear Tangent. Yeah, that's the title. It has Guilty Gear somewhere in the middle there, cause this Chimaki guy is the series' mascot. So yeah, if we stretch it a little, we can say that there is a Guilty Gear DSiWare exclusive, which is pretty cool. And I don't know why the main name of the game is Pro Jumper. I mean, you do jump a lot in this game, with it being a platformer and all, but there's nothing pro about it. It's just some pretty standard jumping, collecting apples, defeating enemies with your towel. Cause by the way, Chimaki here is feeling all kinds of sore, so he's visiting all the hot springs and massage parlors he can find to soothe his old bones. That's the premise here, and it's pretty great. And it's a nice platformer too. Every stage has a soap somewhere that makes you slip through the stage until you bump into a wall, and some of the apples can only be obtained this way. Every level ends with a boss fight, against the same boss every time, but he learns new moves. Chimaki controls a little weird, especially when running, but this is a fun platformer for sure, worth picking up for $4.99, and one of the quirkiest games on the list, and exclusive to the DSiWare. Next is one of my favorites for sure. Simple and delightfully addictive. Bird and Beans. You control the bird there called Pioro, which has a impossibly long tongue with which you need to catch the beans that float down from the sky. If the beans hit the floor, they destroy a block, which can quickly get you trapped in an island. You can fix one of the tiles by grabbing a pink bean or a whole bunch of them with the rainbow bean. The points you get from each bean are directly correlated to how long you threw your tongue to get it. If you're all the way in the corner and grab a falling bean that just showed up in the other side, you gain 1000 points. But if you grab it close to the floor, it's only worth 10 points. So strategy is really important to reach 10,000 points, which unlocks Bird and Beans 2 that changes the gameplay nicely. Now you blow some air onto the beans to gain points, which actually makes things easier. So to compensate, the beans now fall faster and in higher quantities. This is such a fun game, and along with Paper Airplane Chase, it is also found in the original WarioWare game on the GBA. I believe you can unlock them there if you prefer, but the DS version is so cheap for $1.99 that I think it's totally worth it. Next is really surprising, Thorium Wars. This is one of the best games on the DSiWare. It also has a sequel on the 3DS called Attack of the Skyfighters that I hope to cover if I can make it in time. But the original here is an awesome game, very ahead of its time for a DSiWare title actually. This is reminiscent of the old school Star Wars games where you control a jet flying around, tackling all sorts of missions and enemies. I really enjoyed it. It controls great and the missions are pretty varied and interesting. And so is the sequel too. Thorium Wars is a hidden gem series for sure, check it out. The price is up there at $7.99, but I found it worth it. Following up with a pretty famous series of games, one of which remains exclusive to the DSiWare to this day, the 99 series. Beginning with 99 moves. In this one you literally have 99 moves in each stage to reach the exit. Thing is, your guy moves forward non-stop, you can only turn him, so avoiding all the hazards and the walls that also damage you is very challenging, especially later on when the passages are ridiculously narrow. I did enjoy this one, but be prepared for a lot of frustration. It goes for $1.99, but it's also found on Switch and Wii U. Then 99 Seconds is my least favorite. The names of the games here are very literal. You have 99 seconds and taking a hit reduces your time left, and getting hit at 0 seconds means game over. You can find extra seconds, but it will always add a risk getting them, cause this is a relentless avoid 'em up. And since the sequences are randomized, many times it feels like it's all about getting lucky to be in the correct position when the shapes spawn. The game compensates by always providing extra seconds for you to grab, but the resulting sensation of playing this one was not all that enjoyable to me. It's cheap though for for $1.99 and also found on Switch, Wii U, PlayStations 4 and 5. But the last one is the best by far, 99 bullets. This is really cool. And guess what you have 99 of this time? Yeah, you got it. This game pushes the concept of limited ammo to a whole new level, cause it's easy to conserve your bullets, but each stage has a predetermined amount of points you have to score that force you to use your ammo. So you'll be finding ways to destroy two things with one shot, or finding the best positions to be in to rack up as many points as you can using as few bullets as possible. It's great. Best 99 game for sure, the only one exclusive to the DSiWare, and also the more expensive one for $4.99. Next, a lesser known entry in a pretty famous classic Konami franchise is Frogger Returns. This title brings a pretty faithful recreation of the classic Frogger gameplay. You cross the roads one hop at a time to reach the other side, all the way to the back there, where your frog is safe, then guide another frog until the safe spots are all taken, then move on to the next stage. It does improve the concept a little, introducing different roads to cross, like railroad stations full of trains, which is much more challenging and compensates for the more fluid and faster gameplay compared to the arcade original. It's a solid game here, not fantastic, but fun. If you like Frogger, it's well worth the $4.99 asking price. It's also found on PSN on the PlayStation 3 and used to be on WiiWare too. Next, we have the Game & Watch collection made available on the DSiWare. Those are famous. They were originally standalone handheld consoles from the early 1980s, and they can be fun if you can withstand the gameplay and graphical simplicity, with each providing 2 game modes. By the way, these differ from the Game & Watch titles on Virtual Console, as the Virtual Console ones are remade versions of the Game & Watch games for the Game Boy family of consoles, but on the DSiWare catalog there are 9 Game & Watch titles. The very first one ever released, simply called Ball, has you juggling balls in the air and moving both your hands at once with left and right, and Game B increases the complexity as the ball can land in 2 additional positions. Then one of the best ones for sure is Donkey Kong Jr. This is among the more complex ones, which I prefer. You control DK Jr. trying to free DK Sr. from the cage, and I believe this is Mario right there, Villain Mario, which needs to return. Anyway, you can have DK Jr. move or jump, and he can grab the vines to stay safe from the crocs, but you will also need to watch out for the birds. When you get close to DK there in the second platform, you need to time your jump with the swinging rope to grab it and hit the cage. Game B simply increases the number of enemies. DK Jr. is a lot of fun, I gotta say. Flagman is not though, in my opinion. It's a memory game. You need to replicate the movements of Flagman with every button controlling one of the limbs. Game B changes it considerably. It becomes a fast reaction game. Just be very fast in raising the same appendage as the Flagman. This is my least favorite for sure. Then Helmet is cool. You simply move right, avoiding the falling objects. What makes it much more interesting is that the exit door closes randomly, so you gotta watch out. Game B simply increases the number of falling things. Then in Manhole here, you have the most athletic Mr. Game & Watch ever, who needs to make bridges for the other people to cross. This is really hard. Sometimes the time to move from one hole to the next is ridiculously small, and Game B only makes it even harder. This one is okay. Vermin is a bestseller cause it's whack-a-mole. I mean, who doesn't love whack-a-mole? Game B introduces another hole for the moles to pop out of, so this is a great one. Chef is kind of a variation to Ball, but now juggling food. It shakes things up with another guy on the left that forks one of the flying foods and lets go of it randomly, and Game B introduces one additional food to juggle. Judge is okay. You are the guy on the right and it's always against the CPU on the left. When the countdown ends, both of them hold up their signs, and whoever has the higher number can whack the other one with a hammer for 3 points, but they can dodge it if they're faster than you for 2 points. If you hammer incorrectly, the other one also gets 2 points, and that's it. Game B is only slightly different. And finally, my absolute favorite is Mario's Cement Factory. Like DK Jr., this is much more complex than usual. You have to platform your way around to allow for the cement to flow from the top drum to the bottom drum, and when that one is full, you can dump it all in the truck below. Of course, if any drum is full, and you allow for more cement to be added, you lose a life because the excess falls down and knocks out one of the truck drivers, which I found very funny. Game B makes the factory run faster. This is definitely one of the best in the Game & Watch collection. And that's it, these are all very faithful recreations of the original games, but only for those of us who really enjoy the simplicity and quirkiness of the early days of video games. I know I do. They go for $1.99 each and are very light as you would expect. Moving on to another absolutely obscure Nintendo published game without a Wikipedia page, Flametail. This one is played holding the 3DS like a book, but you still control the spaceship with the D-pad. The objective is pretty unusual, or unique rather. Your spaceship has a literal flametail, which is used to burn the space junk, so your space janitor basically. Thing is, you can't allow any junk to stay behind as the screen moves upwards, including the parts of your tail that have not burned yet, which makes this a really challenging game. To help you on your task, you can collect letters that spell out a number of power-ups like missile, radar, the ability to push blocks and cluster them together to burn them all at once, and a few others. It's a pretty cool gameplay, I gotta say. This is definitely another highlight on the DSiWare, exclusive to the system and not expensive for $4.99. Next is a pretty surprising game on the DSiWare, also underrated in my opinion, because this aged pretty well. Drift Street International. This is clearly graphically impressive for the DSiWare, that's for sure, and it plays rather well. It takes a minute to get the controls, which are very focused on the act of drifting, but this is a complicated thing to do in reality too, so it's justified, and it becomes pretty satisfying once you get it. You'll have to accelerate and tap the brakes during the turns to enter drift mode, and then steering becomes very challenging, posing a sizable learning curve to overcome. Drifting fuels your nitro boosts, which are paramount to winning the very competitive races. Cool game here for sure, and definitely a peculiar DSiWare exclusive. Next is Amoebattle. Now, I know that the name of the game doesn't sound too attractive, looking at it doesn't seem all that great either, but the gameplay is fantastic. Real cool puzzle against the CPU here. You select one of the numbers on the right there that can be blue or rainbow colored. The rainbow colored ones can also be used by your opponent, so you gotta keep that in mind. The objective is to reach the target score by making sequences of numbers, like 1, 2, 3, or of the same number, or even making loops. You see, all blocks have little paths, so if you manage to draw a loop with the little paths, you also score. The bigger the sequence, the more points you get. This is a great puzzle game right here, I enjoyed it a lot. Pick it up for $4.99, exclusive to the DSiWare, except for a Japan-only DS physical, if you can find that. Moving on to the classic FMV games that for some reason they decided to include in the DSiWare. I'm talking about Dragon's Lair 1 and 2 and Space Ace. Remember those? They are very frustrating reaction-based FMV games divided into very short scenes where you have to press the correct direction or press A for using the sword to survive the various threats or watch the very funny death scenes. They are supposed to be reaction games but quickly end up turning into memory-based games because the reaction windows are too small and many times not clear what you're supposed to press, so you'll find yourself just trying anything and memorizing what you press in each small scene. The gameplay here is beyond shallow, but the scenes are fun and somewhat nostalgic enough to garner some interest. But then again, these were made available in several other platforms, as you can see on the screen now, with the highlight being the Dragon's Lair trilogy that also includes the third game on modern consoles like on the Switch, which I see as better versions, especially considering that they are quite pricey here at $7.99. Next, we have the G.G series. Have you ever heard of those? This is a collection of 30 small games. In Japan, they were all released in a physical pack, but to be able to release outside of Japan, their solution was to make each game available individually through the DSiWare for $1.99 each. They're all snack-sized games. They cut a lot of corners in the production value, like reusing assets between them, especially music and sounds, and while some of them are kinda lame, most are pretty great, especially considering the price. I'll go over each one of them, but I'm splitting between this video and the next one, 15 games each. Okay, let's start with All Breaker. This is definitely among the best ones. It's an action platformer. You control girl with hammer there, and the objective is to crush every red block on the stage. However, the catch here is that her hammer destroys any blocks it hits, so you may end up destroying the floor beneath you or platforms you need to reach your goal, so you gotta be careful. Like you'll see is the case for all games on the G.G series, the stages are tiny and it's all about moving forward, but cool game for sure, All Breaker. Next is Dark Spirits. This is a side-scroller shoot-'em-up where you have 4 shooting pods that evolve individually depending on the power-ups you pick up. To apply the power-ups, you have to make the pod of your choice touch it personally, so you can create whatever combination you want for your attacks. You can also change their formation to shoot in wildly different patterns, including backwards. Pretty cool game here, very tough later on too. Now, one of the major letdowns in the collection, Hero Puzzle. This is a falling blocks kind of puzzle game that pretends to be a mix of RPG and puzzle, but it really isn't. The only thing RPG here is the fantasy setting. You do level up, but it's all completely scripted. Leveling up only increases the difficulty, you don't gain any abilities, better stats, gear, anything. It's completely shallow. The puzzle gameplay is not terrible, but I've seen much better, so I'd say avoid this one entirely. Much better than that though is Exciting River. Pretty simple premise, just row your way through the rapid waters against the clock. But the controls are the highlight of this game. You row right by pressing A and row left by pressing any of the directions on the D-pad. So it gives the sensation of rowing a canoe. It's pretty cool and challenging too, as if you want to move fast, you have to quickly alternate the buttons. And if you want to turn, you have to press the opposite button. It's a pretty interesting gameplay style that I enjoyed a lot. Great game here, Exciting River. Next is The Last Night. This one is okay, kind of too repetitive though. This is a top-down action RPG stripped down to the basics. Your knight guy has 2 types of attack, regular or charged, that's it, and leveling up allows you to allocate points on your stats. Vitality increases your life, strength improves your charged attack power, while dexterity improves your regular attack's speed. I found myself using the charged attack exclusively, because it does way more damage. The only thing I really liked about this game were the boss fights, that posed quite a challenge, where the regular enemies in the dungeons were pretty predictable. I don't know, The Last Night was only okay, I can't recommend it too much. Moving on to Altered Weapon. This is a Contra style run and gun, but you can turn your mecha into a car to surpass tight passages and jump over long gaps, changing the pace nicely. Other than that, it's very similar to Contra in every way. It takes a while to get the controls when in vehicle form, but this is a cool game for sure. One of the more impressive ones is Horizontal Bar. This is a platformer with very creative controls. You swing on the bars to gain more momentum and reach higher bars or platforms. The controls are hard to get or explain, but once you do, they are really satisfying. The trick is to watch the character's feet. When it's pointing to where you want to go, then you let go to jump. The objective is to just reach the goal platform before time runs out. Again, this is hard to get, but really cool if you do. Then Vertex is a pretty different kind of falling blocks game. You can't allow a single block to fall, you have to intercept each one by filling in the empty vertexes in each one. Yeah, it's very unusual idea here. If there is 1 vertex missing, you shoot with A. If 2 vertexes are empty, you shoot with B. And if 3, you use Y. It becomes very challenging to juggle all the falling shapes and shoot them all correctly before they fall down. Cool game here, I enjoyed it a lot. Cosmo Rally is a top-down racer like RC Pro AM or such games. I like those, but I did not enjoy this. You are only racing against the clock. If you leave the tracks, you only lose time. I don't know, I fail to see the point of this game, but someone who really likes remote control racing against the clock could appreciate it. Vector is kinda meh, not a bad game, but I didn't find it exciting whatsoever. It's a falling blocks puzzle game where you can link together the arrows in the blocks, and getting 4 of them in a row clears them all out. You can actually have the rows of arrows turn to other directions, which is interesting, but other than the gameplay idea itself, this has nothing to offer to make it more engaging. I'd pass on this one. Score Attacker is a pretty standard looking top-down shooter, but it has 2 special moves that make it rather interesting. One is a powerful orb that you can dish out to cause more damage in a much wider range too, and another is an energy field that absorbs incoming bullets. Both use your energy gauges, but if you use them correctly, you can replenish the energy effectively and always be using your special powers. Cool game, I liked it a lot. Another shoot 'em up to compensate for the lacking variety on the 3DS catalog on this genre. Air Pinball Hockey is a missed opportunity. It's a cool idea for sure for a tiny game to replicate an air hockey gameplay but with missions and obstacles instead of an opponent, but this begs for the use of the 2 screens to see the whole table, but instead uses only the bottom one, following the disc, so you completely lose track of where your mallet is, which is really frustrating. This was really detrimental to the gameplay, unfortunately. Next is the Spiky Blowfish. This is very simple but fun. The idea is creative too. You control the blowfish and to swim up, it will puff into its spiky self, making it capable of killing enemies too. And that's it, like I said, incredibly simple but enjoyable for sure. Then we have Conveyor Toy Packing. I like this one, it's a rather creative type of puzzle game. You have to place the toys next to the boxes of the same color to wrap them up and ship them out. If multiple toys are adjacent to each other, all of them get boxed in. You have to continue clearing toys and boxes while avoiding any to fall off the conveyor belt. And you can push them in too, which is cool. Nice little puzzle game here. And finally, one of the best ones is the Hidden Ninja Kagemaru. This is a stealth action platformer with a good number of ninja abilities to use, like camouflaging yourself against the environment, using bombs and traps. It's fun, challenging and exciting. This one is definitely recommended. Okay, we're done with the GG series games for now, but this is only half of them. The other half I'll feature in the next video. Next is a DSiWare exclusive Blayzbloo spin-off, believe it or not. This is Blayzbloo Super Melee Action Battle Royale. Yeah, and you're looking at a 3D brawler similar to Power Stone on the DSiWare. I mean, what was Arc System Works thinking with this one is beyond me. The game is incredibly bare bones, though the gameplay is not terrible. It is also too limited compared to any other game of this kind. I mean, you can definitely have fun with this, especially if you like the series. It would be a cool keepsake to have, but if you are looking for a great arena brawler, this is really not up to the task. I would pass on it. Next is a series of cool platformers, the Jump Trials games. We have Jump Trials and Jump Trials Extreme, and by the way, there is another sequel released for the 3DS called Jump Trials Supreme, which is also pretty cool, so you can get the entire series in your 3DS if you want. These are precision platformers that get real challenging later on, but also rather addictive. The physics here are just weird enough to be hard to control, but not unfair either. But be prepared for a tall challenge. Look at the final level on the original here. I mean, I died like 100 times to get this one. Pretty solid platformers worth the $199 price each. Next is Viking Invasion. This generation saw a tower defense fever, and this one is a pretty great one for sure, and quite a literal game of this kind too. You actually build only towers to defend your stronghold. Each tower has its own reach radius and weapon type. Every once in a while a Norse god tries to invade, and if you defeat them, you get a special kind of currency used to upgrade your defenses or acquire new ones. Nothing groundbreaking in the genre, but an absolutely solid tower defense, nice to have in your 3DS, and exclusive to the system nowadays. A bit overpriced at $7.99, especially considering that the sequel, which was released exclusively for the 3DS, is $6.99, but this is still a worthwhile game. Next is Rocks and Rockets. This is a Missile Command clone. It has a huge number of stages. The meteors can be made of fire or ice, so you have to counter with the appropriate missile by holding L to shoot. It gets confusing when lots of meteors are coming down. Very simple game, but enjoyable. It would better fit the $199 price tag though. This one is also available on the PSP. Next is Ace Mathician. This is so bizarre, but can be interesting depending on your tastes. It's a puzzle platformer where you can kind of pause the game at any time and mess with the math that dictates the positions of some of the platforms. It even uses sin, cosine, and tangent formulas, which is sure to scare away a lot of people. I mean, what a bizarre idea, right? But it functions pretty well, since not only does it require you to mess around with the math, which even if you have no clue what you're doing, you can certainly guess your way through, but it still presents a nice puzzle platforming challenge on how to traverse the stages and grab the collectibles. Cool and very unusual game exclusive to the DSiWare, and rather cheap too. From the same dev of Ace Mathician comes Color Commando. This is much more approachable. You can pick up paintballs that you can throw on screen in order to pass through some colored enemies without getting hit. It's another pretty challenging puzzle platformer and quite a fun one as well. Moving to Ball Fighter. This is just okay, not a bad game, but kind of too simple even for a DSiWare game. It's similar to a puzzle bobble gameplay, but a little different, as you have to pull in the first ball of a column in a same color stack, and matching 3 or more will have all of them clear. You can actually pull in multiple balls of the same color and throwing them all back at once. It's an okay gameplay, but the game is too bare bones. It feels a bit shallow, which makes the $4.99 price tag seem a bit overpriced. Still a good time waster exclusive to the DSiWare. This next one is pretty impressive. I mean, this is a DS real-time strategy game. We're talking about Amoebattle. In this game you control the amoebas trying to fight off the invading viruses. This is different than your typical RTS, as you don't have your constructions to produce your units. And it makes sense too, because the amoebas can replicate whenever they have enough food, which you can get by either eating the algae or defeating enemies. You can order them to do some mitosis, and bam! One amoeba becomes 2 amoebas. It's pretty cool and satisfying actually. Different amoebas occupy different places in the food chain. There are herbivorous amoebas, carnivorous amoebas, and omnivorous amoebas, and each with different traits, like becoming invisible when on specific patches of land, and much more. This is a rather complete real-time strategy game. I enjoyed it a lot. Definitely worth playing. You can choose your platform in this case, as recently this game was ported over to the PlayStation 4, the Switch, and Xbox One, but the touch-style gameplay with 2 screens will remain exclusive to the DS, and it plays real well here, so consider getting it for $4.99, 3 times less expensive than on the Switch, for instance. Next is definitely one of the weirdest games on the list, 18th Gate. This is a classic style strategy game, like real old school style, such as games you would find on PCs or NES back in the 80s. You move on a hexagonal grid with up to 3 characters taking turns, and the game is absolutely limited in terms of things you can do. You can only walk 1 space at a time, cannot switch the order of your characters, which leads to getting them stuck behind the other ones. There are only a few special moves for each character, and you can't see far away, so there's a good chance you'll get stuck in traps or unwinnable fights easily. I mean, this is only for a hardcore strategy fan. Each stage is relatively small. Your objective is to find the exit gate before you run out of moves. The thing is that you can't really tell how far the gate is because you can't see the layout of the stage. Many times there are obstacles that force you to circle around and waste a whole lot of moves. And at the same time, you want to spend as much moves as you can to kill the enemies and grind a little, because this game is real tough. So yeah, this is a grueling game, only for someone looking for a real weird strategy game on the 3DS, because this is totally exclusive to the system and goes for $4.99. I liked it though, I'll be honest. Next is Rayman. This is a part of the original Rayman that came out on the PlayStation 1 and Jaguar first, and this version here is unique in a few ways, exclusive to the DSiWare. But the differences found in this version are a mixed bag. Some are positive, like it making use of the system's camera in some occasions, having a minimap in the bottom, and a few quality of life improvements also found in the PC version. Others are controversial, like reduced difficulty in many ways, and some are negative, most notably the graphics that were cramped to fit the small screen, as well as the reduced soundtrack. But this definitely remains a solid part of the game. If you'd rather have it on the 3DS, this is the only way and a great one in my opinion. The price is not too inviting though at $7.99, and of course there are several other options for Rayman, including in modern consoles. That's it guys, 50 more DSiWare games for ya. I hope you liked it. Stay tuned for part 7C and a few more videos on this series. I am hoping to cover as much as possible before the eShops close. Do consider joining the Patreon to support the channel if you enjoy it. Any help would be much appreciated, like I appreciate these lovely people whose name you're seeing now. Well, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you soon.